welcome to episode 6 of the Simply Great Relationships podcast. We're so glad you can join us. I'm Meredith Silversmith, and this is Marina Marina, and we are really excited to bring you this episode on how to get your partner to say yes. It's a good one. Make sure you stay with us till the end because we've got a great bonus for you, and we'll tell you how to get it.
So, I think we all really would love it if our partners said yes to us a lot more.
Yeah.
So this is something I tell a lot of people, and it's always a bit of an epiphany moment for them. But a big part of getting your partner to say yes is also saying yes yourself.
Yeah.
So John Gottman, we've mentioned him before, love his research, has a really, really lovely quote that really encompasses this, which is like, compromise with me like I'm someone that you love. So it's about, if you want to hear a yes from your partner, it's also giving them a yes and getting to yes together, because you love each other and you're not battling it out. It's not about a winner and a loser. It's about getting to yes together so that you and your relationship wins.
Yeah, I love that quote by John Gottman because it's reminding you that in the moments when you don't agree, you're not enemies, right? It doesn't mean that you're enemies that are, against each other and trying to get to two different outcomes. It means let's join forces and let's get to something that we're both comfortable with.
Yeah, and I'm sure you've seen this. I see this a lot. Like, a lot of times people are trying to get to the same end point. They just may see a little bit different paths there.
Yeah, all the time.
But it becomes so adversarial, and people really dig their heels in. And it's like, to what end? You're trying to get to the same point.
Yeah.
If you think of it more as a collaboration, more as a getting to yes, the impetus is really going to get you there much quicker.
Yeah, absolutely. Something that I talk about with a lot of my couples is, why do we need to compromise, right? Because a lot of them come in a way not wanting to, right? Compromise means I'm going to take a little bit from you, a little bit from me, and I'm going to put it together into the gray area. But a lot of couples come in and they want, no, I want 100% my way or 100%, my way. And that's just not always possible. So why is this important? I know one thing that I always think of is you want to do something that feels good to everybody, right? Compromise is about meeting in the middle, finding something that everyone's a little bit okay with, right?
Yeah.
That's kind of how I say it. Like, you're not going to be 100% happy all the time, but you could be pretty happy and your partner could be pretty happy about this decision or that decision.
Yeah, and I think, like, that's a really big one, like, to realize that not 100% happy is still a lot of happy. And also, like, a big thing is, and I think we can both, like, relate to this because we're both only children, is, it's, if you don't agree, and, for a long time I struggled with this. Like, I was like, well, if my partner doesn't agree with me, they don't want to compromise with me, we're never going to get anywhere. But, like, you're two different people. You're never going to agree on everything. Yeah. It's more like you just need to agree enough.
Right. Definitely. And not being able to agree on everything does not mean you shouldn't be together, you're a bad fit, you're not soulmates, you're not meant to be, like, all these things that I'll hear. You're not supposed to agree on everything. It's not possible. You're never going to find that.
Never. You're two different people from two different backgrounds, two very individual experiences. It's impossible. And I think when people are really able to internalize, like, it's impossible, and this is not the mission. Like, a great relationship is really not made up of two people that 100% agree on everything. I kind of think that'd be really boring.
Yeah. I'd imagine. I wouldn't want to date myself.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to date myself either. I think there's so much to being able to compromise and come up with new solutions and new ideas together. It's so enriching to a relationship that, it's such a misconception that you need to agree on everything. It's totally okay not to, and it's actually very enriching not to.
Yeah, and I've seen that the meaning you put on the disagreement affects how you handle it. So if I believe that our disagreement means we shouldn't be together, I'm going to come in guns a-blazing, get you over to my side, because then I'm going to feel more secure and I'm going to feel like our relationship is okay.
Mm-hmm.
Versus if you're hearing us right now and we're saying it's normal. It's normal to disagree. It's normal to have to compromise. It's normal to have to find a way to meet in the middle. There's much less, it feels like there's less at stake when you get into that kind of conflict.
Yeah, I mean, I almost equate that to when people turn into lawyers, not partners.
Yeah.
And it's more about arguing your side and bringing the other person over, like, almost by any means necessary. And both people walk away from that feeling bad.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, like, your relationship is not made up of a courtroom and presenting your case.
No, typically not.
So another good reason to compromise is because it's really like, I mean, this may sound cheesy, but it's a learning opportunity. It's an opportunity. When compromise goes well, it's really an opportunity to learn about your partner. The more you learn about your partner, the more they learn about you, the closer and more connected you feel and you become.
Yeah.
And that's really relationship enriching, because if you get out, you take off that lawyer hat, and you're able to say, well, this is really important to me because, not like, you have to come to my side, and here are my arguing points, and here's my rebuttals to all your points, and this is why I'm right, and this is why you're wrong. But you're able to say, like, this is why this is important to me, because here's my internal world on it, and here are my feelings on it. You're really teaching your partner about how you think, how you conceptualize things, what's important to you. You're really letting them in. There's a lot of vulnerability there.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a really good point. You know, I think some people might be watching or listening and thinking, well, we can't even get to that point. Like, we can't even get to the point of talking about our feelings or our internal worlds because we just argue. And, you know, I want you to know that arguments stay arguments when your goal is to pull your partner to your side. If that's your goal and that's your target, like Marina described, like two lawyers building the case, you're going to stay in an argument because there's no room for compromise. So what we want you to do is understand each other first. So before you go in looking for a solution or a resolution or winning, you know, the argument, we want you to go in with a mission of understanding each other. And, you know, the best way to do this is to use the communication strategies that we shared in episode 1. If you haven't watched or listened, definitely go back because that's some really fundamental stuff. Being an active listener, using I statements, speaking in ways that your partner will be able to hear you. That has to come first.
Yeah, definitely. Like, what I always tell my couples in session is, imagine you're a kid back in elementary school and you have one of those word math problems. Imagine you only understood every other word. Would you really be able to solve that problem?
Probably not.
No, and compromise is very much so about getting to yes, about problem solving, and if you're only understanding your part and not your partner's, you're only getting every other word of that math problem.
Yeah. That makes sense.
So it's really important to build understanding, and understanding is I understand my side and I understand your side. So episode 1, really, really vital to build the foundation in order to do this and get out of that stuck feeling of like, we argue all the time, we can't even get to this point.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely.
Yeah, and I think another thing that goes with that is when we argue and when we are trying to compromise, but we're really trying to be lawyers and argue our case, what we focus on are the differences. Like, this is what I want and this is what's different in your argument. And when we focus on the differences, they get amplified. You know, and it seems like, oh, our stances are so different. We're so far apart. We're never going to meet in the middle. Yeah. Because we're so polarized, right? And when you focus on differences, you really do polarize each other.
Absolutely.
But what if you switch and you don't focus on differences, you focus on what you actually have in common?
That's a different concept. That would be a different experience because, yeah, if I'm listening to my partner talk about all the things that they feel, and they happen to be the exact opposite of what I feel, I'm not going to feel very good.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not going to feel very connected, and I'm not going to feel like this is going to go anywhere. So, yes, there are differences. We know that. But channel your energy into finding what you have in common. Channel your energy into exploring your areas of flexibility, your areas that are negotiable, right? So that's really the core exercise when it comes to compromising, is looking at your own areas of flexibility and areas that you would be negotiable on, getting really a physical list, because it's hard to organize that in your mind. So write it down. What are the things that you could be flexible with? Your partner does the same. And then you come together focused there. What's on your list? What's on my list? Where do we match up? And start from a place of similarity and a place of commonality.
Yeah, it's almost like starting waving the white flag. It's starting saying, like, I want to get to yes. I want to end up finding the things we have in common. And I find when couples do this, they're almost amazed at how much they have in common.
Yeah, it's usually a surprise.
And it's so, like, wonderful to see when people are like, wow, we're not, like, as polar opposite on this as we thought. Like, yeah, we may have our own individual things here, but we're really, like, working towards the same thing. And because you're willing to compromise and be flexible, I'm willing to compromise and be flexible. So it's really, really valuable. One thing I do see here, so you talked about making a list of your flexible areas, the areas you're negotiable on, because it's like you're negotiating, you're compromising, you should be really flexible. The more flexible you are, the better. You should also, people have their non-negotiables, and you're allowed to, but I find people, especially people that have a long history of being lawyers, sometimes overvalue their non-negotiables. And they say, no, this is something I'm not willing to compromise on. And it's like you see the defensiveness trickle in. Rigidity. And that rigidity trickle in, by the way, defensiveness, we talk about it in episode 4, really, really important to go back to. If you're like, oh, yeah, that's probably me, go back and listen to that episode. But a really important question to ask yourself here, and along with writing, like, write this out. What makes my non-negotiable a true non-negotiable? Is it just that I'm really stuck in that defensive feeling, or is this really a non-negotiable for me? Right. I love that. And when you ask yourself, and I know I do this in session and you do this in session, so if someone has a really, really strong, rigid, non-negotiable item, you can say, well, what makes that so important to you? And if the answer is because it is, or because it's, it just is, what do you mean? We get sort of this blank, black and white, it's yes because I said so kind of answer. Yeah. That's a sign that maybe it's not so important, and maybe it's more about, like, the defensiveness and the dynamic playing out. So you really want to take that time on your own. Again, you don't want to invest a lot of time and energy in writing a long list of non-negotiables, but you want to jot down, what are my sticking points? What are things that go against my values, my beliefs, my ethics, my comfort level, right? What are the things that I just can't bend on? Jot them down, but more importantly, consider why they're so important to you. And really try to get to that core reason. And like I said, it's usually an ethics, beliefs, value, or comfortability issue. And you know what I've seen? I've seen a lot of times when people do this exercise and they're so open and so, like, they go in with the intention of getting to yes, like, their non-negotiables match up. Their non-negotiables are quite similar, and they become almost like a little bit less non-negotiable because they live under the same umbrella. Yeah, definitely. And I think the other thing that can pop up, which is a good thing to consider, is when you are looking at the why, typically there's some story in your history that ties into that. So whether it was your history growing up, your history in a previous relationship, your history of this relationship, there's usually some past experience
that you've had that has made this a sticking point for you. And to be able to identify that and verbalize that to your partner can really help get things moving, because then you're bringing understanding and empathy into the mix. And that's super helpful.
Yeah. So I think the writing part is really key here. And I think the not being scared to ask yourself the questions and really evaluate your non-negotiables, especially if you have like more than 2 or 3. I always say like really, really evaluate those non-negotiables. So after you write your own, the real value in this exercise comes from sitting together, you bring your lists, and then you go through all your negotiables and non-negotiables, and on a separate piece of paper, you write down everything you have in common.
Yeah.
And you know what that does? Makes you feel like you're on the same page.
Yep.
It really makes you feel like you're on the same page and like you're negotiating and compromising and getting to yes with a person you love, not an adversary.
Yeah. And I think what's really key there, you're starting with your negotiables, right? You're doing the work on your own independently. You're meeting together. You're starting with the areas you have in common. Then you're touching briefly on your non-negotiables, but the point is to invest your time and energy in the shared, agreed-upon areas and expand them. How can we expand on this? How can we get creative with this? How can we make this happen or meet both of our needs here? I mean, something that's sort of exciting is we've made this really easy for you because we've created a really great document, a compromise cheat sheet that lists all of this out, so you don't have to remember and write down what we're saying right now. You can just download the sheet and then have it ready to go when this comes up, because it will come up. It's going to come up.
It should come up.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's a good piece as well. I think it's important to talk about the different types of problems that people try to handle with compromise, because we've touched on this in previous episodes, but there are solvable problems and then there are perpetual problems. So solvable problems are typically short-term, concrete problems where there's a yes or no answer, there's a solution, there's a resolution, there's something very tangible that can be fixed or changed, versus perpetual problems that are more of a mismatch in beliefs, ethics, values, needs, comfortability, and it's something that's going to play out over and over the course of your relationship. I think we've mentioned this statistic before, but it still creeps me out every time I say it. 69% of problems in relationships are perpetual. 69% will never get solved.
And you know what? I used to really kind of have a hard time internalizing that. And now I see it more as you're embracing two different people's uniqueness.
Yeah.
And the question that comes up for me is like, do we overvalue solving every problem?
Maybe. Maybe. But I think it's good to know because, again, coming back to the point, don't go into the conversation expecting to find a solution. Don't expect a right or wrong or a resolution or a simple fix. Expect dialogue and understanding.
Yeah.
So, let's give an example. What would be a solvable problem that could be handled with the compromise procedure that we've been talking about?
Well, I can give an example from my own life. So, George and I are house hunting, and prior to, we sat and we did exactly this because, we come from very different backgrounds. We come from very different kind of growing up and type of experiences. So I knew that there would be like really core areas that would be different for us in terms of what we were looking for in buying a home. And I know, George tends to be the frugal one. I'm the more kind of frivolous one. So there would be some like differences in budget and some differences in kind of what we see and areas. So we really sat down and did this, and we talked about like, the kind of feeling we want to create in a home, the kind of area we want to be in, the kind of budget we want to be, like what were our negotiables and what were our non-negotiables. And we got to yes. We really like honed in on what the budget should be, what areas we want to look at, what type of places we want to look at, what our non-negotiables were. And like the funny thing is, I went into it like I really had to check my defensiveness because I had like some non-negotiables that I really evaluated and were really non-negotiables for me. And I was like, oh, I don't know how George is going to react to this. But he actually had the same non-negotiables.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, this is so nice, you know? And my non-negotiables were I wanted a place with dishwasher and in-suite laundry because, as you know, we don't have laundry even in our building right now. So, so yeah, it was so effective. And it took, maybe 30 minutes, 35 minutes doing it together. Probably took me 20 minutes to answer my own questions. And it was just such a helpful, quick, easy, solvable discussion. And we got our template and we actually presented it to our broker. And it just, it was just such a smooth process.
That's awesome. That's a good one. So a story of success.
Yes, a story. Compromising. Yes.
So, if I'm thinking about a perpetual problem, I would say the one that feels most perpetual right now is both Tom and I work a lot. We work a lot. I work a lot. He works a lot. He works in Manhattan, so he's commuting. I work a lot between doing, this and talking to you guys and seeing my clients and doing writing, and there's a lot of things going on. So that would be our perpetual problem, right? I would frame that as we both work a lot, we have busy, hectic schedules, and how do we navigate the responsibilities of life, right? How do we navigate division of labor, maintaining our home, taking care of our pets, all those fun things that come with being adults and being married and having a home. So the perpetual problem is I'm not stopping working, right? I'm not going to stop working tomorrow so that I can do more laundry or do more dishes, and Tom's not going to stop working. So that's going to remain the same throughout our life. So how do we navigate that? So really it's about, for us, that was about talking through it in a constructive way, getting to the understanding piece, right? Me really hearing what his schedule was like and what his energy levels were like and what was important to him, what were his non-negotiables. One of his non-negotiables is I have to exercise, 5 days a week. I have to. That's how I feel good. Okay, so that, hour is definitely blocked off. And one of my non-negotiables is I have to food shop in a real store with real food. I'm a Whole Foods girl. I know you're a Whole Foods girl as well, but, I can't run down the block to Stop and Shop. I have to go to Whole Foods. It's important to me to eat organic. Like, there's certain things. So that's a time and a labor, to do that. So there's certain things that was important to each of us. So sort of accepting that he's going to spend an hour a day exercising, expecting that I'm going to make this production trip to Whole Foods once a week at least. And, okay, so we accept, we respect that. We don't necessarily see eye to eye, but how do we then divide and conquer the rest and stuff? So rather than getting angry at, you didn't do this or you didn't do that, no, we're accepting and we're understanding and we're navigating the fact that we both have busy, hectic schedules, we both have things that are important to us, and with the flexible time that's left, we accomplish the rest. So I think that probably a lot of people experience a similar challenge.
Yeah, and it's not a problem that's necessarily going to go away.
No.
But it sounds like you have learned to live with it and have compromised to a point where it's not really, it's more of a problem hypothetically than it is on a day-to-day basis in terms of impacting your life and not feeling good.
Yeah, at this point, absolutely.
Yeah, and I think that's really the goal with perpetual problems, is improving the quality of life as opposed to looking for a solution.
Right, exactly.
So the goal there is to compromise to like a better state of being, not necessarily to problem solving, because it's not necessarily about problem solving, but like you guys had this issue and it felt bad, and the issue is still there. It no longer feels bad. The quality of life improved. The problem's still there, but it's not necessarily any longer a problem.
Right. Exactly. So it was successful as well.
So really the goal there wasn't to solve, it was to move from this gridlock of like, oh, we're both busy, we're both not gonna quit our jobs to be homemakers.
Yeah.
It was more like, let's dialogue about this, learn about each other, get closer, and compromise to a point of like where this feels good, and our non-negotiables are kind of really being acknowledged, and we learn about each other, and we learn about what each of us values while living our life.
Yeah, that is the goal. That's definitely the goal. And I mean, look, we don't want you to just listen to this and then go do whatever else you're doing in your day. We want you to really integrate it into your relationship. So we did create that compromise cheat sheet that we mentioned earlier. Strongly encourage you to download it. It's step by step. It guides you through it. You could use it all the time if you have to. So you can get that over at our website at simplygreatrelationships.com/006 download. So that's the best place to get it. And we want to know what you think of it also. So I'll be curious to know how it works for you.
Yeah. Was it helpful? Did it feel different? Was it nice to not be a lawyer?
That's a big change.
Yeah. So let's talk about takeaways.
Takeaway from today. I would say, honestly, hearing from you that you enjoyed, like you were going to make a really big decision that not necessarily, I almost feel like you don't have to be in disagreement to apply this. That's, I guess, my takeaway. That if you're going into a big life decision or just something where there's the potential that we may not see eye to eye, you can really set it up for success by going through this process from the beginning. You don't have to have an argument to get to the point of compromise.
Yeah, that's a really, really good point. That compromise is not always about like post-argument. It's about big life decisions where you need to compromise, and it's like a little preventative medicine. Yeah. Almost, to be able to do that. My big takeaway is, I love this one, is that the majority of problems are perpetual, and that it's about improving quality of life and not seeing them necessarily as such big and impactful problems, as opposed to looking for this specific, well written out solution. Yeah, definitely. That most problems aren't going to go away, but that's fine. So I would say some good takeaways today. So that's all for today. We hope you take these tips and you start using them right away. We'd love for you to continue the conversation with us in our Facebook group, where we'll be hooking you up with tips, tricks. We're doing live streams exclusively for our group members to continue the conversation. If you have any questions for us, you can find our group at facebook.com/groups/Simply Great Relationships, or click on the link on our website, simplygreatrelationships.com, because we'd love to continue the conversation with you.
Definitely. So until next time, we'll see ya.
Bye.